Have you ever noticed how certain hours of the night just feel different? It's not just a silence. It's what kind of silence? The kind that feels like it's listening. It's in that strange gap between the last cleaning shift and the first cup of coffee that the weirdest things tend to happen. Your body's already tired, your mind starts to slip, and reality, well, it's that exact moment when even the clock seems unsure and the whole world feels like it's holding its breath. For some, it's just another night shift, but you know that feeling like something's watching you, even if you can't see it, or when part of your routine starts to repeat so much that you begin to question it. Yeah, that. This is the story of someone who thought it was all just exhaustion, until exhaustion stared back. This is the 2:17 a.m. shift. I've been working as a night security guard for almost 2 years now. It's not the dream job, but after I lost my old job as an IT technician, it was either this or moving back in with my parents. I took the night shift because it paid a bit more, and honestly, I thought it would be calmer. Fewer people, less noise, less trouble. The building I work in has 12 floors. It's in a more business district of the city, and at night it's practically deserted. During the day, it's busy law offices, a digital security startup, a brokerage firm. But after 7 p.m., everyone leaves. By 8, it's just me, my radio, and the cameras. My shift starts at 10 p.m. and ends at 6 a.m. Overall, it's quiet. I do rounds every hour, check if all the doors are locked, make sure no one is wandering around, that kind of stuff. The routine has become almost automatic until I started noticing something strange. That always happened exactly at 2:17 a.m. at first. I thought it was a coincidence. But for several nights in a row, the elevator in the building, the East Wing elevator, which goes from the ground floor up to the 12th floor, moved by itself, always at 2:17. The display showed it going down to the ground floor, but when I checked the cameras, there was no one inside, and there were no call requests registered. Like I said, at first I didn't care much. Could be an electrical glitch, an old system, interference, normal stuff for a commercial building with half-baked maintenance. But it really started to bother me when I noticed that every time the elevator came down, it would stay stopped at the ground floor for a few seconds. Then the doors would open without anyone calling it, and after exactly 17 seconds, it would go back up, always to the 6th floor, and stop there. The pattern was always the same. 2:17 goes down, stops at the ground floor, doors open, nothing. 17 seconds, goes up to the 6th, and stops. I even checked with the maintenance technician. He came during the day, looked at the system, said everything was normal, no errors in the log, no call records at 2:17, nothing. Then the weirder stuff started. One night, I decided to go up to the 6th floor right after the elevator stopped there. My radio crackled with static when I reached the hallway. I don't really believe much in electromagnetism or interference stuff, but it's weird when you see it happening with your own eyes. Or rather, hear it. The floor was empty, as always. But at the end of the hall, where one of the rooms the brokerage used to rent was, there was a strange smell, almost like burnt paper mixed with ozone. And even though all the rooms were locked, one door, room 608's door, was ajar. I stood there for a few seconds. I'm not easily scared, but there's something unsettling when you know no one should be there. And yet a door opens by itself. I went in, it was just an empty room. Furniture covered in plastic sheets, as if someone had hurriedly moved out. But what made me most uncomfortable was the sound, a very low hum, almost imperceptible, like the ones you get from old lamps, only deeper, like it was coming from the floor. The next day, I checked the elevator camera footage, and that's when things got worse. When I reviewed the elevator camera recordings that morning, I didn't expect to find anything beyond the usual doors opening by themselves, maybe some interference in the system. I was even ready to chalk it up to part of the package, the kind of mystery every old building carries. But what I saw still doesn't make sense. The 2:17 footage showed the elevator stopped on the 12th floor, alone. Suddenly, it activates and starts going down normal, so far. But the system's time display didn't match the actual descent time. It was like frames were missing, like the elevator had gone down too fast, but the clock inside kept marking the correct time, like it had skipped time. Then it stops at the ground floor. As always, the doors open. And for a moment, just fractions of a second, the camera records a shadow crossing the door. I paused, watched it in slow motion. The shadow had no defined shape. It wasn't a person. It was more like a dark blur, projecting from outside to inside, like smoke in reverse. But the worst wasn't that. When the door closes again, something changes in the camera image. The angle is slightly off, like the lens tilted a bit, or the perspective was pushed. It's almost imperceptible, but you can notice it. From that moment, everything in the video feels a little out of place. I spent the whole day obsessed with it. Went home and kept replaying that clip until dawn. Paused, adjusted, contrast, brightness, sharpness. Nothing made it clearer. But that feeling that something was wrong stayed with me. Like I had seen something I shouldn't have. The next night, I arrived at the building more tense than ever. I took my phone secretly, intending to record the elevator myself. The company protocol forbids it, but honestly, I didn't care. I needed to see for myself. I did my deuxième round as usual. All calm. At 2:15, I placed my phone on the reception desk, pointing straight at the E-swing elevator, hit record and waited. Las 12:16. Las 12:17, the elevator display lit up, going down. My heart started racing, but I stayed calm. The elevator went from the 12th straight to the ground floor. Stopped. Doors opened. No one was there. But that wasn't all. The ambient sound changed at that moment. The low hum I had heard on the 6th floor that other night was now here, on the ground floor. Almost like it had come along with the elevator. I froze for a few seconds. Then I did something. I still don't know if it was bravery or stupidity. I went into the elevator. It was still stopped. Doors open. I pressed the button for the 6th floor. The elevator went up. Everything normal. But when the doors opened, the hallway was completely dark. Not just unlit, dark. All the lights were on in the building's system. But it was like something was draining the light. And at the end of the corridor, there was a figure. Tall, still, just a silhouette. I tried to go back, press any button, but the elevator didn't respond. The figure stayed still, and then started walking toward me. But the steps made no sound, and the floor didn't shake. I didn't wait any longer. I ran, taking the stairs, 2 or 3 steps at a time, heart pounding, feeling the thick air as if every breath was taken inside a stuffy room. I got back to the ground floor, locked the elevator control panel, and disabled the 6th floor button with the MasterCard. Never wanted to go up there again. The next morning, my phone was still where I left it, recording. I watched the video during breakfast, hands shaking. In the video, at 2:17, the elevator really opens by itself, but there's no sound, no hum I heard. No door noisy, nothing. The recording is completely silent from that moment on. Worse, at no point does the camera show me entering the elevator. It's like, in the video, I simply disappeared from the reception at 2:16 and only reappeared at 2:23, sitting in the chair, panting, staring into nothingness. And I swear, I remember every second I spent up there. But in the recording, I don't even get up from the chair. After that night, everything changed. Not just in the building, but in me too. You know when you get the feeling someone's watching you, even when you're alone in the room? There's a kind of weight in the air, like another presence occupying the same space, but invisible. Yeah, that became part of my routine. It started with small things. A muffled sound coming from the ventilation system. A faint rustling on the front desk intercom. Like someone was breathing softly on the other side, but never answering. Sometimes, the internal circuit radio would crackle out of nowhere, with no one transmitting. Sometimes, I heard my name. One night, I went to the 1st floor bathroom during the 3am round. I've always hated that bathroom because it's the only one with a flickering fluorescent light. That bad horror movie vibe. But I went anyway. While I was in the stall, I heard the door open. I called out, "Hey!" Is someone there? Silence. The sound of the door closing. Then slow footsteps. Not hurried nor stealthy. Just way to calm. And then a whisper. So low it sounded like it was coming from inside my own head. You shouldn't have come up. I ran out of the stall. The bathroom was empty. None of the doors moved. No sign of anyone entering or leaving. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, and for a second, I was sure my reflection took a moment longer to mimic me. Like it forgot the timing. I went back to the lobby and tried to pretend nothing had happened. But every night started to feel heavier. Time seemed to slow down after 2 a.m. My senses felt overly sharpened, to the point I could hear the hum of the lights as if they were screaming. That's when I started taking notes. I made a notebook and kept it with me during the shift. I began recording everything that happened between 2 and 3 a.m. times, sounds, sensations, changes in the environment. One thing became clear. Always at exactly to 17 a.m., something activated. An invisible pattern, like the building had its own clock. One day, I tried something different. I waited for the elevator to make its trip alone, as usual. But this chimney, when it stopped on the 6th floor, I didn't go there. I grabbed the security camera and pointed it at the monitor showing the floor. I let it record. Then I zoomed in on the image. On the screen, the hallway looked normal, but one of the doors, 608, again, seemed to tremble. Not opening, but subtly shaking, as if made of water and someone was pushing from inside. And then, exactly 17 seconds after the elevator stopped, the camera froze. It stayed frozen for 3 minutes. Then it went back to normal. When I reviewed the footage, those 3 minutes were blank. No image, no sound, nothing. Worse, in the surveillance log, those 3 minutes didn't even exist, as if they had been erased from time. The next day, the building manager showed up. Somewhat gruff guy who almost never shows his face. I was surprised. He came straight to me, sunken eyes, and said, "You've been asking a lot of questions about the 6th floor." I confirmed, not really knowing where this was going. He was silent for a few seconds, then said, "That floor shouldn't be accessible anymore. Room 608 was shut down by legal recommendation. There documents a complicated history. If you want to keep this job, stop going up there." I tried to ask more, he cooching me off. "These faison." Advice, it's an order. And he left. I went home, disturbed. I searched the building's address on Google, posted it on Reddit, in old forums, nothing, no news, no strange history. But one detail caught my attention. In a 1998 floor plan, the 6th floor didn't exist. It went straight from the 5th to the 7th. I thought it was a drafting error, but then I found another document from 2002 showing the same absence, and another from 2004. Only in 2007 did the 6th floor officially appear, as if it had been added later. But buildings don't work like that. I started thinking I was going crazy. My dreams turned into shift fragments, dark hallways, melting clocks, bottomless elevators. In one, I dreamed I entered the elevator and it never stopped descending. Each floor, the numbers became less recognizable. 5, 4, 3, then E, then symbols, then just twisted lines. I woke up to the sound of my bedroom door opening, but it was locked from the inside. I was at my limit. I was close to quitting, but something in me wanted to see it through, so I made the stupidest or bravest decision of this whole story. I went back to the building an hour before the shift, took a flashlight, 2 cell phones, my notebook, and an audio recorder. Set everything to record through the night, and exactly at 2:17, I got in the elevator and went straight to the 6th floor. The doors opened. Everything was as before. Total silence. The light seemed faded, like the air was thick. I walked down the hall, jotting down what I felt: metallic smell, lower temperature, a constant low rumble. I reached door 608. It was ajar. I took a deep breath and went in. The door to room 608 was half open. No sound inside. No light. Just that thick, Damp silence, like the air had stopped. The doorknob was cold. Colder than it should be. I pushed the door with my shoulder because I didn't want to touch it with my hand. The apartment hallway was intact, but everything looked covered with a thin layer of dust, but not regular dust. It was a kind of grayish soot, almost like volcanic ash. The floor creaked under my feet, but without echo. The acoustics were strange, almost muffled, like I had cotton in my ears. The apartment was small, a sofa covered with a dingy sheet, an old closet with one door broken. There was a table with a battery-powered radio turned off, and next to the radio, an analog clock with the hands stuck at 2:17. The moment I saw that my audio recorder, which was in my coat pocket, started to emit static, I took it out and looked. The indicator light was blinking on its own, as if picking up some interference. I pointed the flashlight toward the kitchen. That's when I saw it. On the floor, there was a fallen chair and drag marks, as if someone had been pulled from there toward the bedroom hallway. The marks ended in front of a bedroom door that was ajar, not fully closed. I got closer, and that's when I felt it. A presence behind me. Not a person, not something I could see with my eyes. It was more like a magnetic field, like my whole body had been turned inside out. My arms tingled, and I felt that feeling of being inside the wrong place and time. But I kept going. I pushed open the bedroom door slowly, and inside there was nothing except for a wall covered with photos. Old, faded photos. Black and white, all pasted side by side, like a mosaic covering from the baseboard to the ceiling. Some had dates, 1973, 1981, 1994. Others had names handwritten, but most were faces, blurred. People standing, looking at the camera, but with their eyes scratched out, as if someone had made sure to erase their identity. And right in the center, a larger photo, the entrance of the building itself, with a shaky handwritten caption underneath, "Time does not forget it, only waits." I froze. I wanted to leave. But for some reason, I couldn't move my body for several seconds. My heart was pounding so loud it was the only sound I could hear. And then the door behind me closed by itself. I held my breath. At that same moment, the flashlight started flickering. The battery-powered radio in the room turned on, even without batteries, and began emitting a low noise that turned into a whisper. You've been here before. It wasn't my voice. It wasn't male. It was something in between. Like a voice that didn't fit anybody. I threw the flashlight away and stumbled out into the hallway, knocking over a chair on the way, kicked open the front door. I didn't look back. I ran down the hall to the elevator. I pressed the button repeatedly, but it didn't come. When the door finally opened, it wasn't the ground floor, it was the 12th floor. But different. No lighting. Walls covered with a layer of dark liquid. I didn't go in. I just ran down the stairs, my footsteps echoing between empty floors. Gravity felt distorted. My body felt heavier. When I reached the ground floor, the reception clock read to 17 a.m. Again, I checked my phone. It was 3:04 a.m. But the building's internal systems were still stuck at 2:17. I didn't work that night, or any other night after that. I handed in my badge, made up an excuse, and left. The manager didn't even seem surprised. He said, "Most people don't last as long as you." I went home and stayed in my room for 3 days, going over the recordings, the photos, everything. Nothing made sense. But one thing gave me chills. The last image recorded by my phone, before the lens went completely dark, was the photo of the wall with the scratched out faces, and in the background, reflected in the glass of a frame, there was a silhouette standing behind me, looking a lot like me. Same haircut, same uniform, but the face was completely blurred. I never went back to that building. For weeks, I even avoided passing near it. But honestly, the problem wasn't inside there. It stayed with me, because since that night, 2:17 a.m. has been the moment when everything inside me goes silent. Or rather, changes. Even when I'm far from the building, even at home, even in another state, like what happened later. I moved cities, changed routines, deleted numbers, and social media, but it didn't help. Every night, I wake up at 2:17 a.m. on the dot, without an alarm. It's like something is calling me. At first, I tried to ignore it, took sleeping pills, drank until I passed out. But no matter what, I always wake up at that time. And worse, with the feeling that I'm back in that hallway, that the doorknob is cold in my hand, that the door will open again. One night, I dreamed I was facing the mirror, brushing my teeth. Everything seemed normal until I realized my reflection wasn't following me anymore. It was standing still, watching me, and slowly it started to smile. A smile that wasn't mine. Since then, I avoid mirrors at night. Sound paranoid? Maybe. But it's only because you haven't lived this. I tried telling this story before to friends, to my sister, even to a psychologist. But the reactions were always the same. You were tired. Your brain was under stress. Sleep disorder, anxiety-induced hallucination. Maybe that's what it really was. Maybe I made it all up. But if it was made up, how do you explain the audio? Because I recorded it, and it's still saved on a memory card, hidden in a drawer I swore I'd never open again. The audio lasts 2 minutes and 17 seconds. On it you can hear the door of room 608 opening, my footsteps entering, and then something that sounds like a voice. Whispering, repeatedly, "You are next. You Yavban. You will be." And then a dry sound, like the tape broke. I showed this to a friend who works with audio editing. He listened silently, and in the end said, "Dude, I don't know what this is, but don't listen to it again." Since then, I put everything aside, but the coincidences don't stop. The other day, I went into a commercial building here in my new city. I was visiting an office. The elevator was empty. But when the door closed, I noticed something strange on the panel. It went from the first floor straight to the fifth. No second, third, or fourth floors. And when I got off, the reception clock read 2:17 a.m., even though it was afternoon. Maybe I'm stuck in a loop. Maybe that night pulled me into some kind of blind spot in reality. Or maybe, just maybe, the world we live in has glitches. Places where time doesn't work right, where memories get mixed up, where people disappear and no one notices. Have you ever had the feeling you've lived a scene before? That someone calls your name and you don't know who they are? That you wake up in the middle of the night for no reason. Always at the same time. Yeah, it could just be a coincidence or not. Today marks exactly 1 year since my last patrol. And I'm writing this because I want to close this cycle. But before I finish, I need to tell you one more thing. 2 days ago, I received an envelope slipped under my door. No sender, no stamp. Inside, there was a single photo. It was the reception of the old building where I worked. The same camera angle behind the counter, but something was different. In the picture, there was someone standing, back turned, looking at the clock on the wall, and it was exactly me. Same jacket, same posture, but the detail that chilled me to the bone, the clock in the photo showed 2:17 a.m. And on the back of the picture, a handwritten phrase, "You never left." If all of this was just a breakdown, then why do I still feel that cold creeping up my spine every time I see a clock showing 2:17? And why did you, listening to this now, glance at your clock in the middle of the story? Tell me, do you also always wake up at this time? Or is it just me? Is it already past 2 a.m.? Then maybe you shouldn't be listening to this right now. But if you enjoyed the 2:17 a.m. shift, go ahead and drop a like and a comment, or better yet, a confession. Have you ever had a shift where something just didn't make sense? We want to hear about it. Send your creepy, strange, or straight up impossible story to our channel. Maybe your experience will be the next one to keep someone else up at night. See you in the next story.